Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Word Balloon, live, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Welcome back, Kaare Andrws. Good to see you, man.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Absolutely.
Good to be here.
We talked last month a bit about, or actually, I guess it was October at Baltimore. We talked a bit about your upcoming AWA book. It did drop this week?
Yes, this week it hit Wednesday, and now it is in the world. It's been birthed into the world. So
very cool, man. I've got images here from the book that you were kind enough to share with me, and I will bring them up momentarily. Here it is. E-Ratic, everybody.
There we go.
Cool cover and some of the amazing art. Tell us give us the 10-second elevator pitch for E-Ratic.
Well, E-Ratic is an archetypal kind of teen superhero book. It's about a kid who has these crazy powers where he can do amazing things, but only for 10 minutes at a time. Kind of like I say, he has the powers of the world's crappiest cell phone battery. So once activated, it's a race to do the thing that he's trying to do. And then it's a 24-hour recharge cycle. And that's kind of him. But the story opens with him, he moves to a new town, that kind of archetypal launching point for a teenager. New town, new school. He's got a single mom, kind of a popular older jockey brother, and he's kind of a bit of a misfit himself, trying to figure out his way in the world. So that's kind of the deal.
That's cool, man. No, I think it looks fun. It reads fun. It is, like you said, classic kind of first day, new high school, kind of the new guy and stuff, and dealing with the Lord of the Flies activities of high school, basically.
High school, man. Yeah, high school. It's a beast.
God, dude, I'm telling you, I'm in my mid-50s, and it's like, Jesus, seriously, poor kids, man. They really go through so much crap during these years. So I definitely appreciate that, man. So Mr. Vic says hello to everybody. Good to see you, Mr. Vic. Thank you for joining us. Absolutely. Yeah, man, this is cool. This is, a new superhero for a new age. And we really get into his backstory in this first issue. And you really do set up all the characters and stuff and the people that he's dealing with. And much like in Buffy, I mean, there are enemies in high school as much as there are friends and everything. So
yeah, Buffy was actually a bit of a touchstone. That was a show I discovered very late in life. Just when I was one of the very first Netflix adopters, and Buffy just happened to be one of the very few things you could watch for free. And so I'd always heard about it, but it always looked a bit annoying to me, to be honest. But I just started watching it, and it was like, it was actually really good. I mean, there was some annoying aspects about it, but it was a lot to like, and I actually burned through those 8 years of it pretty quick.
Yeah. No, I get it, and I felt the same way. I'm like, I kind of came to it all backwards, where working in radio, my boss was like, "Oh, you like Buffy?" And I'm like, I'm in my 30s. I don't want to watch high
Yeah.
school
What are you
angst.
trying to say about me?
You know, I thought I was a little more mature past all that. And then he's like, "Well, watch Angel, because Angel's like the closest thing to Batman." You'll forgive me. My neighbors have dogs barking. I don't know if you can hear them.
No worries.
And so I started on Angel, and he's like, and I'm like, "Oh, Angel's good." And he goes, "Well, then you got to watch Buffy, man."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "All right." And I got to say, I mean, it was a really well written, smart show. And no, so I was hooked. And yeah. Oh, here, Drew Manchu says, John Carey, pardon me, picked up E-Ratic this week, loved it. The book has a great energy, no pun intended, the book has a great energy to it. Relatable characters, absolutely. The best #1 from AWA to date, in my opinion. Beautiful work.
Well,
how about that?
Thank you, Drew Manchu. You know what's interesting was this was there was a few things different about this book. One was that I mean, AWA does two different things. It does kind of a superhero type universe. Straczynski set up these dominoes to build a real universe. So AWA would have its own thing. And then AWA also does kind of separate, I don't know what to call them, but like books that exist in their own little worlds.
Yeah.
So this book exists in the Resistance world. And what was interesting about it was two things. One, Axel was just like, "Hey, we're building this universe. If you think of anything that might fit, let's do that." And that's when I immediately pitched him kind of a teen hero archetype. I mean, that's a character I always love, and I think it's because we've all gone to high school, or we're going to go to high school for kids. Like, and I don't think of it at all as a book for teens or a book for kids. It's just, like I've read Spider-Man all my life, from kid to adult. So it's just that kind of character I like. But then the other weird thing about this universe was, because there's such a starting point in Straczynski's setup where there's a pandemic, and if you get sick, you either, expire or come out with superpowers. There was no need for an origin story. It was like, in fact, Axel was really uninterested, or encouraged me not to have the origin story in the book, because we didn't need it. But that actually is a real problem or a challenge for a superhero book, because whenever you think of a superhero, they're always defined by the specificity of their origin. Batman is defined by the death of his parents and him training and using all his wealth to become a superhero. Superman is defined by his exploding home planet and arriving this alien in a world of Earthmen. And Spider-Man is defined by letting his uncle die, and with great power comes great responsibility. Like, almost every hero is defined by their origin. So for me, it was a big challenge in like, well, it seems simple, just jump in and start doing stuff, but to introduce the characters and stuff. So I am kind of like sneaking in a bit of an origin story. So it's not the origin of his powers, but we really are going to follow in this 5 issues the origin of how he becomes, quote unquote, erratic. And that's kind of the tale I'm telling. So it's not an origin story, but it is an origin story in this crazy world.
Well, and again, you're setting up his high school obstacles and friends and everything. I mean, we're starting to meet, who likely will be the regular cast. But also, like you say, I mean, there's even in his high school this like kind of wall of honor for, I assume, the people that were lost because of the pandemic, but also the special kids and the special people that came from the event and was the catalyst of their awakening.
Yeah, that was actually inspired a lot by Heathers, the movie. I mean,
yeah, I love that movie.
I loved the dark humor of that movie, and how I forget what it was, but the father's like, "I love my dead gay son," like that kind of like, everyone becomes a hero the moment they commit self-expiration. Like, it was as like, they're all lifted up for self-expiring, and as like a heroic trait. And it was such, I love that sense of humor, and I love to like insert a little bit of that. And
that is my favorite moment in Heathers. I completely get it. So.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. I mean, it's fun to play with those kind of like the darkness that exists in like, you know, humanity and social interaction and, you know, that kind of stuff. I always kind of like poke at that stuff a little bit.
Well, and also his Erratic's family and stuff. I mean, like you said, he's got the jock brother that no problem, new school, boom, new big man on campus right away and stuff. And his struggling mom. And I also really liked the phone conversation he had with his father, his estranged father. Obviously, coming from a broken family, divorced. Dad's kind of in a long distance way, futilely trying to still be part of his son's life. And
Yeah.
you can just read it on the kid's face and everything, where it's like, all right, Dad's trying, but not really helping me right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting, I find interesting, is that like when I was a kid, my parents divorced when I was like 4, so I actually
Okay.
have no memory of them being married.
Wow.
And I was often the only kid in class with divorced parents, but now it is so common. It's like everyone's getting divorced. It's like
Yeah.
I don't even know if you would call it a broken home anymore. I think you just call it like normal. You know, like the
No, I'm
normal.
hip.
It's almost abnormal to have like an intact 2-parent nuclear family structure. So I thought like it's a bit of a wink and a nudge to Peter Parker's situation living with Aunt May, but
Sure.
I grew up going back and forth with my parents. I didn't really have a single parent, but I could well imagine what just having a single parent would be like, and it's so normal for many people. Like I just thought it was interesting to I always play around with like the world as I know it, but not exactly. Like, you know, I have no interest in autobiography, but I'm interested in what are the things that are normal that we don't really talk about. Like I'm always trying to like dig away at that. Like, how can I show something that's archetypal but new? We haven't talked about it, but it's real and it's happening now. Like I try to pick at that stuff a lot.
I understand. So tell me, this is a teen hero. It seems like it's going to be a very real world situation where we're not going to see a costume per se. Maybe we will. I don't know. You tell me. I mean, he's got a look, but
Eventually, I mean,
okay.
I felt there's right now there's a hole. There's a missing straight up superhero hole that doesn't really exist in comics right now, and I really wanted to create like a superhero with like an animal based name, at least like old school, like, you know, like Catman or whatever, you know,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
everyone used to be animals, right? Like I like that a
Sure.
lot. I wanted to give my hero a tail and ears and like little rat teeth. And so Erratic is really what came first, was the rat part of it all. And I was looking for a way to incorporate I knew I wanted some kind of energy based powers. I had a idea of energy ropes and animals, and it just kind of all came down on me at once, this kind of weird erratic thing. And the tail is really like a grounding wire, so it has a thing. You'll see as we go along, he does get a suit, and he's going to kit it up a little bit, but it's
Okay.
it's my version of a straight up old school superhero in the kind of way I haven't seen in a while. I think it's fresh and new to do that stuff again, so why not?
I agree with you. In fact, I find it interesting talking to more on the Marvel side, but DC people too, where they're like, secret identity, it's old hat. And I'm like, well, and then, I mean, obviously, Bendis obviously getting rid of Clark Kent during his Superman run. And the feeling, and I really thought this was interesting, but they point to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how Steve Rogers runs around without the cap mask on half the time. Tony Stark declaring that he's Iron Man and things like that. And it's like, yeah, you don't need that right now. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, we talked about this. We touched on this last time I think we talked, but I have this very first of all, hey Scott in the chat.
Yeah, I was going to say, absolutely, Scott
Scott
Dunbier watching.
was the very first editor to call me when I was trying to break in as a young punk, sending in submissions. I got like a couple, I'd be lucky if I got a form letter back from Marvel or DC. Every now and then I got back a little note from an editor. And Scott Dunbier was the first editor to call me, and it was very exciting for me.
That's awesome. I haven't had a video talk with Scott, so if you are still watching, Scott, we got to set that up in the weeks or months ahead. I would love to have you back on, and
Yeah.
because he's always got amazing stories, and I love what he's doing over at IDW, and
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
you know,
The whole, what Scott created, that whole oversized art book genre, like that whole format. But if we go back to the secret identities, like
yeah,
when I think of Spider-Man, I think of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I think of that dynamic. When I think of Superman,
yeah.
I think of Clark Kent and I think of Superman, that dynamic.
I'm
When I
with
think
you.
of Batman, I think of Bruce Wayne and Batman. And for me, there's there's a narrative purpose for a secret identity. There's like an archetypal purpose, like a truthful purpose, like it represents truth in a fantastical way. And what would that be? Well, I think it's separating your identity, your secret identity, who you are, from what you do, from what you can achieve. And here's an interesting question. Why is it that almost every secret identity is like someone who's picked on, or someone who's beat up, or a nerd, or someone people don't respect, or someone people don't look up to? But the hero is always held up as like the amazing part. Like, that's very interesting. Like, why is that necessary? And what have we lost by losing it? I know it's real easy to explain how we lost it in film, because in a film, if you're an actor, the audience responds to the actor. You know,
Absolutely, yes.
That's how they emote.
Well, and the producers are spending millions to see Robert Downey Jr.'s face.
Yeah, well, the actors also want to be seen. You know, the
Sure.
actors are like, "Where's my close-up?" Like, you know, the actors have gotten a lot of power in film with that, so you can easily see why that always happens in a film. But because it happens in film, now it starts happening in comic books. And what have we lost because it's happening in comic books? I think we've lost the definition of superheroes, to be honest. And I think it's like my book, I was very interested in the idea that there are stakes again in secret identities. Like, there's a reason why Oliver needs to be a separate entity than Erratic. And I love that, because I think in today's world, we have flipped things a little bit because of social media. Like, we are encouraged by these technology companies to celebrate ourselves.
Yes.
What we eat, how we dress, what our opinions are about the world, not what we do or accomplish.
I'm with you.
In many ways, it's like it's all backwards. And I think it's actually psychically fracturing people's brains. Like, there's this Jungian idea that a doctor needs to put on the lab coat to perform his task, like his occupation. It's how the patient knows he's a doctor. He enters the world of being a doctor by that white coat. But when he's home with his wife and kids, she should leave that white coat at the office. You know, if he's wearing the white coat at home, there's some problems in that marriage or whatever. That guy's crazy, right? You need to have a clear separation between what you do and who you are. And I think it's just healthy to have the separation. And in the modern world, we're like forcing those two things to be the same, or forcing that who you are to be more important than what you do. And I think it's so crazy. So crazy.
I agree. No, and you're right. A lot of social media, you want to present an idealized version of yourself.
Yes, and because you're doing that, what are you doing? If you're only presenting an idealized presentation of yourself, you're actually losing your actual self.
Yeah.
Or you're living a lie. And I think it's fracturing, and it makes people go crazy. Like, actually go insane.
I don't disagree, man. I hear you, and I think so. And that's I'm so not about selfies or here's a photo of my food that I'm eating. Although I have to admit, for Thanksgiving I made a green bean casserole. And I have to show that I actually was cooking. So
sure.
So it was rare, but I did do it in that instance. I can appreciate that. But no, you're right about that. And the old trope of secret identities was to protect themselves and their families, and not reveal that inner self. And you're right. And now in today's social media world, it's completely opposite. You do want to show off.
Yeah. What's like, I think it's very interesting to see, like, what's the purpose of story? Like, why do we have story? Why is every religious system a story-based narrative system?
Yeah.
Why are our oldest histories narrative story-based systems? Why are we so obsessed with movies and books and comics and novels? It's like, we create stories, we live in stories, we learn through stories like guide us. And so it's like, So if we say there's something lost in not having secret identities, and the purpose of secret identities was to protect the people you love, maybe there's like a real world application there. Like maybe the social media is actually hurting the people we love in some metaphysical way. Like, I don't know. I really believe in that stuff. Like I have tried to just walk back from social media a little bit more these days. Like I have my Instagram. I try to make it pure art. I try to leave the politics out of it. I try to leave that call to battle out of it. I try to leave the ideology out of it. Like, and it's been I've never felt better about it, to be honest.
No, I always try to keep it light as well. I wonder how much I would be on social media if I didn't have the podcast. And really, yeah. I'm just like, saw this great movie, read this great book, read this great article, and it's all pop culture stuff. I'm with you. I've pulled back from my political agenda or beliefs and really just want to be like, hey, we all need entertainment. Let's make some stuff happen. Now, there's some good comments that I want to acknowledge.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really glad that people are already chiming in. And Reverse Amoeba says, really enjoyed Erratic #1. Cool story, great art. We'll definitely keep picking it up. Congratulations on the launch. And Tom Levine asks, do we have to adjust our storytelling then to reach or go against this social media influence? Well, that's funny because literally you're dealing with that in this first story arc of Erratic. In fact, especially the way the first issue ends.
Well, I'm definitely incorporating like today's. I mean, today every kid. I mean, I've got 3 kids now. Today, every kid wants to be a YouTube star. Like, that's the big thing. It's not celebrity. It's not like actor. It's like YouTuber. Like, they all want to be YouTubers. So I do incorporate that in the book because I haven't really seen that much before, but it's real. It's here. It's now.
Yeah.
I think ideologically it can be a bit of a mistake to push against something. I think that's just war in many ways. I think probably the best way to adjust our storytelling, as the comment says, is to refocus on the core of storytelling. So, like, if let's say this, if your life is a bit unbalanced, say if you're a workaholic and your family is just imploding, I don't think the answer is to quit your job and just live with your family. It's just balance. Right. It's just refocusing on the center, like refocusing on the core. I'll chase out something and I get lost, and it's just like I'll worry about the results, and I'll worry about how people will react, and I'll worry about my editors, and just worry. And the only answer really is to refocus and just like process. Like, what am I doing now? Kind of that mindfulness, that Eckhart Tolle mindfulness, or the here and now of the Buddha, the Tao.
I'm with you. What? Tell me, who's editing the book, and also tell me about your collaborator on the book.
Yeah, it's I've got Dulce and Axel are editing, and then I've got over at AWA, and I've got Brian Reber on colors, and I've known Brian forever.
Oh, okay.
But I think this is the first time we've actually worked together.
Oh, wow. Honestly, Kaare, I assumed you were drawing it because you got those great faces, and I love them in terms of, no, truly, they're always incredibly expressive. And I mean, that's why. And I'm like, all right, he's drawing the book. All right, so that makes sense. That's your colorist on the book that you're working with.
Yeah. So, Brian's coloring. It's been great. Like, I've colored my own stuff for so long. It's just, when you do more than one job, like, I often do, like, I'll pencil, ink, color, write, or whatever. You can do all those jobs, but then your art has to simplify to make your deadlines.
Sure.
I just the last big thing I did like that, Renato Jones, I just at the end of it, I was just like, I want to just like recalibrate my energy a little bit and like focus a little bit more on the line art and let go of some of the colors, like let someone else do the colors. And what's interesting is like giving Brian the colors now freed up some time, and I was able to attack the backgrounds in a way I haven't been able to, but I've wanted to, which is kind of a concept art kind of way. They're not quite line art. They're a bit of a bashed up mix of digital paints and stuff. It was an
Okay.
interesting. It let me explore my art a little bit more rather than just trying to catch up the whole time.
Understood. By the way, I'm glad you mentioned Renato Jones. That's the last time we talked, and I really did enjoy that book. I thought it was really cool. And I don't know if you ever have plans of revisiting that world.
Yeah, I would like to. I mean, I think he could be unleashed in today's world in some spectacular spectacular fashion against the evil billionaire class. Like I could name a few evil billionaires that are alive today that could use some recognition.
I understand. Absolutely. No, that's great, man. Also, as a guy who, and I know right now your focus is comics, I don't know if you have any films in development or anything, but I'm really interested, and I love talking to filmmakers and TV people during these weird times. Is it inspiring smaller, focused stories because of the limitations that we're currently on? Are you thinking along those lines in any ways of any?
You mean like the COVID limitations?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and then it just seems like a lot. I mean, people are taking this moment, not necessarily, and it's funny because obviously the resistance and what Straczynski set up in the AWA universe was created years before the real pandemic that has now hit us. But that said, people, I just like the fact that we're getting one room films and TV ideas and things like that aren't necessarily leaning heavy on the pandemic, but are accepting the production limitations and finding creative solutions to those limitations. And I don't know if you're thinking along those lines for any future ideas.
Yeah, there have been limitations. What's interesting is I live in Vancouver, and what's interesting in Vancouver is I believe our production is higher now than pre-pandemic.
Wow.
I believe there's more, and we've been like a high production city for a while. We do so many series here, so many shows.
Oh yeah.
But we were able to in Vancouver keep our caseloads and our numbers pretty reasonable, and nothing ever really locked down. And we've always been open to industry. Canada, the borders have always been open to, like, if you have a job, you can go back and forth across the borders. So
okay,
you do have to. You still have to quarantine if you come here, but once you're here, you can just work. So what's interesting is that here production has been affected very little. There's the only thing that really happened was that in the beginning, when we first started to explore production, it was like local shows went first because it was like local actors, local directors, local producers. And then when they proved it safe, then the bigger shows like jumped. So the production itself, the only thing that's changed is the staffing procedure. So if you're doing a series, normally when you do a series, a director will just jump up for pre-production from the States or whatever, shoot the show, jump back to LA or wherever they're from. But now there's a cost. There's like a 2-week cost. You have to pay a director to sit in a hotel room for 2 weeks before they can start working.
Yeah, so, self-isolate. Yeah.
So it's like an extra, like, whatever it is, 50 grand or whatever it is. So there's some extra cost, and that's in every department. Wow. Same with actors. But what they've been doing is they've been pre-booking people for pockets of work to just get around that. So, like if you're a director, you'll hire a director and you'll get them to direct a bunch of stuff and then send it back. Or like there's less, I guess there's less crowd scenes and extras and things like that.
I was wondering stuff like that. Yeah.
But it surprisingly hasn't changed too much at all, to be honest.
Okay.
The bigger thing is that as a whole, that's just locally. In a broader scope, the bigger thing is the industry has changed because as an industry, there's less overall production. And so there's been a lot of development, a lot of scripts, but also a lot of layoffs in terms of executives and agencies and things like that. There's been a lot of kind of like, now you have all the movies going to HBO Max instead of theaters from Warner, which is crazy.
Yeah, but again, I mean, what are you going to do? You can't sit on that inventory. You want to get it out there. They also want to develop HBO Max and get subscribers. And what can they do? It seemed like it was an obvious conclusion. It's been interesting seeing the films that have passed on going streaming. I'm sure you heard, and it still fascinates me. Some streamer offered, or maybe a couple offered the new Bond film like $600 million to stream, and they're like, "No, that's okay. We'll wait." And it's like, wow. I mean, again, in this $1 billion box office world pre-pandemic, I get it to a degree, but by the same token, it's like, geez, I would have. I mean, if I were the Broccolis or whatever, I'd be like, yeah, man, let's take
Yeah.
the money and let's get the movie out there.
I mean, I do understand it. Like, it's such a that's such a prestigious
Oh yeah,
franchise. Like, it's sold on the prestige of it, right? So I can understand that. It's interesting. I'll tell you what. I had a movie I directed that came out this summer, and it's just a little tiny movie, a little action movie called Sniper Assassin's End, which is actually Sniper 8 in the Sniper franchise. But it popped up to #1 in US iTunes in August or September or something like that.
That's great, man.
That probably wouldn't have happened if there wasn't, this
Totally.
weird stuff going on.
Yeah, no, I had Ruck on about The Old Guard, his Netflix movie.
Yeah.
And it was, the top Netflix movie in July or whatever.
Yeah.
And it had Charlize Theron. That's great, Card. God, I wish I had known that. I would have bought it and watched it and everything, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scrappy movie. It's like 18-day shoot. We shot it here in Vancouver. We were actually posting up until January, so just pre shutdowns or whatever.
You were in post production in January.
We were just finishing in post production.
Yeah.
I think in January. So we just kind of missed all that stuff. So we were able to release. Just normal. We even released theatrically in Japan and Dubai. I believe.
Sure. No, dude, that's awesome, and really, I like the little scrappy movies. I mean, I was always an indie guy and more indie comedy and indie drama and stuff, but now I've really gotten into these great, like, kind of just good gut level, like, action movies. I talked to a guy, Alexander Nevsky, and he's been Russian guy, former bodybuilder, Mr. Universe, has made 7 action movies since he's come to the States.
That's awesome.
And he's got this, and he was like, Schwarzenegger was his hero, and he went to Schwarzenegger. He's like, I want to do what you do. And Schwarzenegger's like, make your own movies, make your own opportunities. Yeah. And he's had a few little bit parts in various movies. He was in a Sofia Coppola movie in a bit role, in addition to his own movies and stuff. But a really interesting guy and making his own movies. And it's great because he is calling on the Michael Madsens and Eric Roberts and all these great character actors that, God, that's their bread and butter these days, making these low budget action movies or whatever. And yeah, I honestly think it's great. And it's just like audio media and video and television and what's happening on the digital platform and stuff, that these, and especially in this current environment, movies like Sniper 8 can compete with whatever the big studios are putting out.
The landscape is definitely changing. Like, especially, I think, all those big Warner movies going to HBO Max, I think, that's going to be, I don't think they're going to earn a lot of money. That's going to be a bit of a financial loss. So what happened? You still need those big movies because that's the spectacle, the big cinema. But I think you're going to carve out an even bigger space in between the tentpole and the indie. And when I was a punk growing up, the action movies were the biggest movies around. Rambo and Commando and Predator or whatever. The action movie was like king, like Stallone and Schwarzenegger and Swayze and Swayze. The dancer was an action movie star. Swayze. Like, come on.
No, you're right. Well, my example like that has always been the movie Two Guns with Denzel and Mark Wahlberg. Remember that?
Yeah. That was based off of a Boom comic, wasn't it?
It was Stephen Grant.
Yeah.
Another great Marvel creator and everything. And it was interesting. And I talked to Stephen and I talked to Ross Ritchie about this. And exactly what you said. It's like, at the time, I mean, this was the early aughts or mid aughts, pre-2010. And I'm like, 20 years ago, this would have been a summer movie hit because it was a buddy cop movie, basically, good cast, but not a huge budget, and just really effective, good writing, good directing, and just a solid movie. And for a while, people were discovering these movies sometimes after their theatrical release on cable. And now instead, they're coming out, streaming first. And also, like you were saying, it's that it seemed like the mid-budget film was disappearing.
Oh yeah, it's gone. It's been wiped out. They're all Netflix shows now. But I used to rent those action movies every weekend with my buddies.
Me
Like
too.
that,
I
we
still do it.
loved them so much. Like whatever, whether it's Kickboxer or Bloodsport or Lionheart
Totally.
or Red Scorpion or whatever. Like we
Yes.
just would love those, and we wouldn't see them in theaters. We would rent them on the weekend, and just hang out and have fun watching these crazy action movies. And then those video rental stores shut down. Right, they went away. It really killed the action genre. I think that was a big part of it. And now it's kind of a resurgence. Like actually the sniper movies are they do very well on Netflix.
That's
Like
great.
that's why they're still like they made the first sniper movie when I was in high school, and I directed number 8 just like last year. Like it's
Wasn't it Tom Berenger originally in the sniper movie?
he's in mine too. Yeah, Tom Berenger.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
It's so weird. And again, Alan Moore used to write about this, how because of cable and reruns and everything else, we see actors at all stages of their careers.
Yeah.
And certainly as the baseball season was winding down, Major League was all over the place. So you got young mid-'80s Tom Berenger and stuff.
Yeah.
And now you see him, and it cracks me up. And I don't mean to get political, but to me, he looks like Dick Cheney these days.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, sure, yeah, sure.
And I've always been a fan of his. I think he's a great character
great.
actor.
Yeah, and a good
he was
guy.
A great lead back in the day.
He's got one of those faces when I was on set with him. He's got one of those faces where this happens with actors. Some actors, not every actor's like this. Like some actors, they're like, oh, there's a really attractive guy or girl or whatever. You put the camera on them and their faces get a little soft. You're like, oh, I guess they're not photogenic. Like you find out as soon as the camera goes on. But Berenger has the kind of face where as soon as you put the camera on him, he like crispens up. Like it's just like this weird.
Oh, funny.
It's just like it, and it's actually a rare thing, but it happens with some people, and it's I used to do a lot of photography too, and it's a very strange disconnect thing that happens as soon as you put a lens on someone, because it doesn't happen normally, but every now and then, like a small subset of that person gets more attractive or more interesting or more intense. Just I can't explain it. It's just a thing, a movie star thing.
It totally is a movie star thing. Absolutely, man. That's just they connect with the camera in some subconscious way that as we're watching them, we can't take our eyes off them. No, I get it, man.
Yeah.
So are there other name actors in Sniper 8?
Well, Chad Michael Collins plays his son, and he's been in the Sniper films for the past 5 or something like that. And,
okay.
And the rest of the cast was Vancouver actors, but some really good ones. There's like Ryan Robbins, who I've known forever. He plays like Archie's uncle in Riverdale right now. He's been in everything.
Okay.
Lachlan Monroe, he's in our film. He was Betty's father in Riverdale, but he's also been in like everything from Jason versus Freddy to like he's one of those faces where he's just been in like every movie.
That's awesome.
But there's some fun. It's a very small cast, and we have a Japanese pop star, Sayaka Akimoto, who was in I forget, one of the big pop bands over there for a while. So it's a very interesting cast, and it was fun. It was a fun experience. But I think these movies, these kind of like let's call them a pocket movie, because they're kind of small enough to just kind of keep going and carry with you, but they're not a series. It's not it's not a character-based 6-season arc of like a guy or a woman doing a thing. It's like an adventure. It's like a pocket-sized adventure. It's like a pulp novel.
Yeah, yeah.
And it doesn't need like $300 million to do it. Like I think actually there's a renaissance coming of those kind of films, because they do very well in the streamers. They've been missing in action for a while, but there's actually a fan base of people that really want those movies, and it's becoming more acceptable to find them and pay your $7 on Amazon Prime or iTunes or what. And then you're right. That's the new window. The new first window is the streamer rental, and then the streamer, and then maybe a second tier streamer down the road. Like I think it'll be a renaissance in that kind of movie that I grew up loving. It was fun to do one. So
I completely agree, Kaare, and I love those movies as well. As I look back at old movies, I love seeing those budget westerns from the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And I think they're really effective and interesting. And it's, the limitations of a budget. usually, I'm sure you've had it happen to you, with you, where that's where creativity really
Oh
happens.
yeah.
What you can't do suddenly expands your mind of, well, then we'll that challenge, we'll tackle it this way.
When
And a lot of
the
time,
budget noir movies,
oh God, yes,
the
good
whole
Lord,
genre was created because they could only afford one light, right?
right? Or was it Val Lewton? I forget which
Yeah.
filmmaker would
Yeah,
always
Val
shoot
Lewton.
like against a certain kind of blank wall, so that it was easier to match shots and stuff like that. If he had to stop production and start it up again or whatever.
Maybe I don't know. I mean, he's one of the kings of that genre. So yeah, I have this awesome box set of his that I discovered in my 20s.
I don't know if they have it in Canada, but we have an American channel called Movies with an exclamation point, and
Okay.
they show a ton of noir from the 40s through the early 60s,
Yeah.
and a lot of just budget Columbia films, and well, certainly Monogram and some of those other
Yeah.
second and third tier studios of the old days.
Well,
And yeah, no, I'm fascinated by that stuff.
the
I
coolest
can't stop watching it.
the coolest part of that is because your budgets are low. Um, it actually, I think why the creativity happens is when you have a $200 million movie, well, you have 20 executives and you have all these producers, everyone has a financial investment in the outcome of that movie. So
Yep.
it's like you're baking a cookie and there's 20 people in the kitchen watching you and they're all trying to give you notes on how to bake that cookie to make it taste the best for someone else to eat. It'd be like, how can you actually you have to be really good at navigating that world to make good movies in that big budget way. And that's why so many of them kind of fail, is because too many people want too much for it to be good. And everyone just defines good in a different way. Like just look at the latest batch of Star Wars movies for how that works. Even when they're good, they're like kind of like exhausting to even taste this thing.
No, I hear you, man. You're 100% right about all of that.
But in these smaller movies, there's just like that overstructure is so pared down. There's so much more room, even though there's not room budget wise, money wise. You have to move quick and you have to do a lot of cheats and there's not a lot of cast. Just there's that weird destructive thing that happens when there's too many other people in your kitchen. Like you can just cook. You can just cook,
No, I do. And also now you've done a ton of horror movies over the years. And that, I've been really amazed at the success of Blumhouse and their low budget movies and stuff. And so, are you watching it? Like, is there a fear of, being influenced in a negative way where, oh shit, I'm copying these guys? Or do you watch how they make those movies, and does that inform your projects as you tackle?
I reverse engineer everyone for even comics too. Like I love reverse engineering, like whatever. Like if I'm trying new things, I love to like deconstruct what other people are doing and like learn how to do it. And I gave myself permission a long time ago to like just not worry about whether you're copying someone. There's the quote. I think it's been ascribed to everyone from, I don't know, from name is Picasso, from Picasso to whoever, but it's like, it's that thing. It's like bad artists copy, good artists borrow, and great artists steal. And it's because if you're a bad artist, you're just trying to copy the results of something. So you're just trying to like echo something someone already said, but you're only looking at like the results, right? You're only tracing that final result. And with no understanding of anatomy, no understanding of lighting, so when you're tracing something, you'll miss like the line that is the eye or whatever, it'll be a mistake. And if you're just borrowing, you're so tepid about like, oh, I just kind of want to take a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And if you make art with that instinct of just tepidness, you can't make strong art being a tepid artist. Like you have to just dive in. So the only way to do it is give yourself permission to just outright steal. And when you're stealing something from someone in the truest definition of the word, you're actually taking ownership of that thing, right? And in a weird way, when you take ownership of that art, it becomes yours so much you completely sever the connection to the artist you're borrowing from. And it's the only way to make that art yours. And by making it yours, it actually becomes a new thing. So it's very healthy to just steal, like just go get it in the art world. And then the film world too, like just like go get it and beware. I think I'm more concerned when I feel like I'm tepidly borrowing or tepidly trying to be influenced. Like I'm very wary of that feeling when I start to feel it happening, because you do. Then it's at that point you just have to be like, jump in head first.
Yeah, get over yourself. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I get it, man. No, that's fantastic, and I'm glad to hear that from a comic standpoint as well. Well, a lot of times too, just through your own your creative process and your hands, literally when you're drawing and writing for that matter and stuff. When you are borrowing, it does become your own thing because you just are a different person. And I've heard that even from an acting standpoint, where people of different physical types will borrow characterizations that they see in other actors that they admire.
Well, look at Christian Slater and Jack Nicholson. Like Christian Slater was very open about he had a Jack Nicholson period. Like
absolutely,
it's great. Like I think it's great. Like look, Todd McFarlane, Michael Golden, Art Adams. Like there's a lineage. From the jump from. Let me tell you what happened with Travis Charest. His big artistic jump was because he was doing the Jim Lee. And then he just owned it and started doing his own thing, but with that Jim Lee still in him. But he just, kind of like Sienkiewicz from his Neil Adams start, like
100%.
I think it's so healthy to like. It just, I think if you're a young artist, don't worry, just stop worrying, just like jump in. What happens happens. Cool, man. Yeah.
No, that's really cool. Definitely. So, Erratic is 5 issues. Yes. I don't know where you are in the writing and drawing process of the miniseries.
I am finishing up drawing issue 4, and I just did the cover for issue 5. So, I have 1 issue left, really. So
that's cool.
It's good for the schedule, so that there's no chance of any delays or anything. But we'll see what happens after that. I'm kind of writing a very open-ended 5-issue. I want to create a world. So I want to create like, hey, here's a world, and then like, let's take your hands off it. It's not really it's not. I wouldn't call it so much like it's not a miniseries with a hard stop.
Sure.
It's not like the end of a story. It's like here's the end of an adventure, and I always like the idea of whether there's more created or not. Those characters are defined in a way where they could go on forever in your own imagination. So I'm always trying to like figure out these endings. I tried to do it with Iron Fist. I tried to do that with Spider-Man Reign. I tried to do that with Renato Jones, where the way I end a story is I try to end it on another launching point. Like that's my favorite kind of movie, where something happens, they resolve it, there's the catharsis, and then the final beat is actually a new adventure begins. Whether you're there or not, whether it actually happens or not, like it's still like in your mind, it keeps going and going.
I understand, man, and I'm glad again that you mentioned Reign and also your Iron Fist stories, because they really stood out. And certainly in the case of Iron Fist, you were creating a new living weapon that might, eventually be part of the lineage and everything. Am I right?
Yeah, it's interesting. You do these characters, and it's like they're not your characters, and someone else will come after you. But your job isn't to be that tepid guy that just fills in some space until the next guy comes. Your job is to like take a swing, try to get that home run, like try to get that hit that people talk about 10 years from now. Like that's your job. And I'm always trying to figure out like how to do it, because there's so many ways to do it. But I love stepping up to the plate, even though it's horrifying and terrifying. I love that pressure,
That's outstanding, man. It's good to hear. So what, and again, I don't want you to spoil anything that isn't ready to talk about, but what does your 2021 look like?
Well, there is a Marvel thing that will come out in the summer.
Great.
It hasn't been announced.
Okay.
And I will be finishing up Erratic.
Right.
And, I was doing covers. And beyond that, I cannot discuss with any more clarity or there will be assassins hunting me down, and the doors will barge open and SWAT teams will come for me.
Beyond movies, have you done any TV directing?
Yeah, so I've been doing TV now for a few years actually. I've done
cool.
7 series. The last one I did was I worked on V Wars a little bit. I did an episode of V Wars, and I did some Van Helsing. I did some Aftermath, some other Mech X4 for Disney. So I've done a few series. So what I did was I at a certain point I kind of jumped into the world of TV directing. It just was more interesting. I was very curious. I had always avoided it specifically in the past, and I just found myself watching a lot of TV, and I wanted to try it, and it's a lot of fun. It's like it hits that adrenaline spot of filmmaking where you feel like you're getting helicoptered in, and the village is on fire. You got to like take out all the bad guys, and you get helicoptered out. Someone else cleans up the mess. Someone else puts out the fires. But at a certain point, you miss the responsibility of carrying a project from start to stop. So it was good to go back and do Sniper. That was the last feature I did. And then right now, I was supposed to be directing a series now in Ontario. It got COVIDed away, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But I'm always like, I'm attached to a couple of things, some features, and I'm doing some writing right now. We'll see. The directing is such a crazy world. You never quite know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. And
it's been fun hearing. I mean, I haven't had conversations with Kevin Smith, but I know he dabbles in television. The one guy I did talk to a lot about going from films to television was Reggie Hudlin. And it was really fun hearing his point of view. And as I understand it, like you said, the director, has a different role because of the fact that you're part of a much bigger thing. The producers and the writers, it's kind of their world. You're executing what needs to be done. And there is a great level of creativity, but it is in that more compressed shooting schedule as well. Like compare how many days you had to make Sniper 8 versus an episode of TV.
Well, it's actually pretty comparable. With Sniper 8, that was the fastest feature I ever shot, but it was 18 days. And normally for like, if you're directing a TV block, at least in the shows I've done, you only get about 15 days for 2 episodes.
Okay.
Like all the shooting days are compressing from even the big shows. The big shows, you'll still maybe get 9 days per episode, something like that. But it's pretty fast. It's pretty rapid. Here's how if you know the world of comics, the best way to describe television directing versus feature directing is the difference between penciling a comic and writing and drawing a comic. So when I direct a series, it's very much like I used to be like when I'm penciling comic books. You get presented a script. It's not your job to change it. It's your job to execute it.
Sure.
But in the execution, what I always did when I penciled other people's scripts, whether it's Warren Ellis or Mark Miller or whoever, is I always look. I love to reverse engineer those scripts. I love to look at a script and be like, I know what this writer has written, but what are they really trying to do? I know that what they're describing on the panel. What are they really looking for? Because the truth is they don't have the skills to do it, right? So they're trying to describe something they cannot do. So
right.
It's like I'm trying to write up an architect. I'm trying to describe an architect, what my fantasy house might be, not having those skills myself. So when a writer's writing something on the page for me to be drawn, I know inherently they don't have the skill set to execute. So I can't just I can't just connect the dots. I have to go under and go beneath and really give them what they really want, even if they don't know it yet. I love that. I get it. Absolutely. I don't rewrite anything. I never rewrite anything when I'm drawing it. Like that's a big cardinal sin when you're penciling. But the idea of like giving them what they really want, it's like almost psychoanalysis. And so when I'm directing a TV series, it's the same thing. And what's interesting is like when you first start directing TV series, everyone's always like, "Oh, you're a movie director. This is not your medium." You remember that, and like you get told it so much, you start to ask, "Why is everyone telling me this? Why is everyone telling me so obsessed with telling me that I'm only this thing?" Well, you begin to realize, it's because it's actually a lie. Like it's like someone trying to convince you live in a different city. Like no one would be telling you that so much unless it was not true. So what you discover is that you actually have much more power as just a series director than anyone wants you to recognize. And so you can't even ask for like, you can ask for script changes. You can ask for some rewrites. You can ask for things that are in the script. You can, it becomes a lot of negotiating, and it's a little bit more like you have to like be a little more persuasive rather than demanding about it. And if you have big ideas, you let people know first, because the machine moves so fast.
Sure.
A big idea at the last moment will never happen. But if you have a big idea at the beginning, it can start going through the machine. So there's different strategies to do it. So I like both. I like both styles, to be honest. Like TV directing is different from film directing, but I like them both.
That's great to hear, man. Honestly, I really do appreciate that perspective and the differences between TV and film like that. Great comments here. First of all, let's see. Dante says, I loved your Iron Fist run. The art especially was really good. I also enjoyed the mini you did afterwards, too. Too bad they haven't done more with Pei. Indeed. Great character. Absolutely.
Yeah, you when I was doing Iron Fist, like I had this idea of like, I wanted to just like, I'm always trying to like create new characters and just see what happens. And, you know, it's like taking a swing at bat. You want to create a bunch of characters and just like throw them out there and see if any of them stick. So Pei has shown up like a little bit. I like her a lot. It's been encouraging to see her a little bit, but you know, it's okay if she goes away for a while or comes back or whatnot.
Yeah, and then Dante follows up and says Ed Brisson did Sparrow some justice in his run, and says that one-shot Wolverine issue you did with Mark Miller is amazing.
Oh, great! Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Like that one shot was that was cool. Like Mark is one of my favorite writers I've worked with. Like his writing is simple, but it's also there's something to it in that simplicity. It's really fun to draw those stories. Like there's something about the way he writes characters and that is just fun to draw. Like it's not a chore. Like I feel like I want to act when I'm drawing people interacting. I often feel like I'm acting, and I want to act out those scenes a lot through my pencil. Like
sure.
So
yeah. No, that's what I mean. Truly, when I was talking about your faces and stuff, no, the acting absolutely comes through, man, and the emotions on these characters' faces as you're drawing them, no question. And Dave Fowley, my buddy, who's a Chicago film critic, he wants to know what your favorite Tom Berenger role is.
Well, I actually think The First Sniper. The First Sniper is my favorite Berenger role.
That's cool.
That first movie is pretty good. Like it's a funny movie. Like it's really funny. Like him and Billy Zane. You need to watch it again. Like it may like it holds up. Like it's a pretty fun like buddy cop movie. Like I remember it being a little more serious as a teenager, like a little more like, oh, this is a thriller, but it's actually like just kind of a campy buddy cop movie, but two snipers like getting into trouble in the jungles. Like it's pretty fun.
That's cool, man.
But he's great. Yeah, he's great.
Well, dude, I'm definitely gonna have to rent Sniper 8 and check it out. And yeah, I hope whatever TV or film is in your near future, let me know ahead of time, and the next time we talk, we'll talk about those.
Sure, I'll give you a heads up.
Absolutely, man, and also the new Marvel series too when it's ready. But right now, the focus is on Erratic, a great new AWA teen hero book that is very timely for our current world, and I don't mean that just in a COVID way, but really just a very contemporary story about what it's like being a teen that suddenly discovers he has these powers and what he's going to do with them.
Part of the fun, this is not a focus, but part of the fun was investigating the modern school system. Like,
I can appreciate.
Like I've got kids in school, and I think I told you this story. But there is this, I ran into the Pink Floyd video, Another Brick in the Wall, where it's this English headmaster, and he raps the knuckles of a little poor 10-year-old boy for daring to write poetry in class before sending him on this like conveyor belt of like faceless people at desks, and then they stand up and then they go to the meat grinder. It's like that's a very quaint idea of what the school system is. Maybe it used to be like that, but now my kids aren't punished for writing poetry. My kids are punished if they don't write poetry. Like it's like it's all like what? It's all backwards. So I don't know. I think it's funny. Like I haven't seen that. I think everyone's so scared to even talk about it. I haven't seen it accurately portrayed in any pop culture, any TV shows or whatever. So I thought it was really fun. Like I have a bit of a dark sense of humor. I thought it was really fun, just like poke fun at some of the modern version of that, because the conveyor belt is still the same.
Yes,
where they're pumping you through this faceless automaton system into the meat grinder, but it's just like the specificity of that, where that conveyor belt goes is maybe rerouted, but it's still the same kind of experience that can be really hard on people.
Well, and that's the thing. You really the backdrop of the school is very much explored, and the teachers and the hierarchy of the principal and all that in a great way. And yeah, I again, well, it influences the kids. And how are the kids being influenced today? Very contemporary, absolutely, man.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I just had some fun with it. I'm always trying to find like what is true, but I haven't seen before. And that's, I try to find that a lot, whether it's story or art or directing or whatever performance.
Well, as Drew pointed out earlier in the conversation, he said, I like the origin wasn't as necessary as the origins of the characters. The family elements really worked, and I want to know more about the kids at school. And I would agree with that, not only the kids, but also the teachers and the principal and everything that's going on. And there's also a very interesting little moment with a principal and teacher. I won't spoil for people that haven't read it yet. But no, it is. It's funny and good action, and I think great characterization, Kaare. Honestly, congratulations.
I have this weird subversive urge when I make this stuff. That's just like, I just want to poke the bear. And I often just make myself laugh when I'm writing, like whether it's Renato Jones, like kind of like going after a Bill Gates type character or Steve Jobs type character or whatever. Like, I think it's fun to just like, be a bit subversive, or whether it's a high school, poking fun at teachers in a high school, like whatever. It's just all fun. Like,
yeah,
try to have a good time with these characters.
No, I think your sense of humor comes through, and it does distinguish itself from other stories within the genre. So that's why it's there's really fresh ideas in Erratic that I think everyone will discover.
But at the same time, I really wanted like a classic character. I wanted like a character that's beat down, like a character that's beat down, but as a hero, he can like achieve. I still wanted that dynamic, that Clark Kent Superman, that Peter Parker Spider-Man, that like isn't it interesting? I was just thinking about this today with He-Man. Same thing, Prince Adam versus He-Man. Like, it's interesting that the secret identity is so like, what does that mean as a narrative structure? What does it mean that the secret identity has to be beat upon for the hero to be a hero? And maybe it means that in life we need to be beat up a little bit. Maybe it means that in life there's actually real value in getting your ass kicked. Like, there's real value in getting humiliated. There's real value in failing. There's real value in in losing. And you can only find a way to actually achieve and win and transcend into a better person, a better man, if as a boy you experience real hardship.
I'm with you, man. Yeah, no, and failure. Say it again, Kaare. I couldn't hear you, Kaare. Sorry.
I just like that idea of hardship and failure as the road to achievement.
Yeah, man. You learn from your failures, it's the limitations, just like in directing, that inspire the more creative solutions.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. If everything came easy to us, good Lord, I can't imagine. I truly feel bad for the beautiful people like his brother that do that. Things come so easy to them, because really, where's the inspiration to achieve more and do better and everything?
Totally. Well, I find it interesting. I find it interesting that there's such a modern phenomenon of trying to protect children from hardship. Like, I find it interesting.
Oh, I agree.
As a father with kids, like, there's a real, or at least for the past 10 years or so, there's been a real urge to just protect people from getting hurt feelings, But then you look, and in the world, like, what is one of the most meaningful things you can say you've done? Well, I've climbed Mount Everest. And what does that mean? Why is climbing Mount Everest meaningful? Well, because it's really hard and you really have to suffer. And also it's pointless.
Well, also, go ahead, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
It's like the hardship is the meaning. So it's, for a normal person, climbing Mount Everest is a representation of the most meaningful thing they could do. But if you're the Sherpa following those guys up and down the mountain every day of your life for 10 years, there's probably less meaning in that job. So it's that imposition of hardship that generates the meaning in a weird way. So it's like we can't rob these kids of hardship. We need to pile it on them. We need to make them almost break, I think.
Well, I agree. And I also think you need to prepare them for the realities of life that you're not, I mean, and it's funny. I was talking to a friend today. It's that whole everybody gets a trophy thing. It's like, no, man, you gotta explain to them that it's okay sometimes to not get what you want and lose. Losing is okay. We learn from losing.
Losing is good. It's good.
Yes, and it teaches us to try harder next time, and that way you appreciate winning more when it does happen. And it's like, this isn't I mean, if anything, the real life lesson should be, okay, you lost. This isn't the only time in life where there's going to be a winning and losing situation. Keep at it, and there will be times where you win. I promise you it will happen. Don't give up. Don't let a loss keep you down. I mean, I love that speech in Rocky Balboa when he's telling his kid, you got to get up and keep moving forward. Yeah. That's how winning is done. And it's
I mean, even if you never actually win the game, the getting up and keeping going, that's life, right? Like that's like fall down 8, stand up 9. That's the samurai edict. That's the path, man.
I'm with you, man. No, I'm totally with you.
Yeah.
So well done, sir. As always. I'm looking to see if there's any other comments.
Oh, I want to answer this, Dante.
I was going to say, Dante's comment. He didn't like the fact that he didn't believe the kid had trouble with girls, because that's true. During the course of the first issue and everything, all these girls are commenting how cute he is and everything.
I will just say that just from experience, growing up as a kid myself, having girls fawn over you, perhaps as a little boy, does not rob you of being incredibly shy and timid and maybe not succeeding socially. Like there's like those are actually separate things. When often why there's a lot of maybe some beauty challenged men who find a way to who really woo the ladies with in other ways.
Sense of humor, absolutely, man.
Sense of humor, sense of humor, or just being really good at a thing like a sport or artistry or making money or what. Like there's, just having people find you physically attractive. It doesn't mean you're gonna win the game. It's like. But I also thought that was fun to do. Like I liked that Peter Parker, when he was a teenager, he was actually kind of an attractive teen. Like he had MJ after him, he had Gwen Stacy after him, but he was still a nerd and a dweeb, and he was still picked on by Flash. Like I like that. I like that weird thing. I don't know.
No, I agree with you, man, and especially in the hands of somebody like John Romita, who everybody was pretty in the John Romita books, Totally. Absolutely. So, Kaare, as always, great conversation, man.
It's been a lot of fun, man.
I'm happy for you, and I'm really excited that you've given me something to watch this week, and I'll give you a report on that.
I'm ready. Scrappy movie, but
we're for it.
It's fun, man. It's fun. I'm actually writing this feature right now that we'll see if I make it. I'll have to talk to you about it. I will be right up your alley, I think.
Well, that's why, man. I always, as much as I like talking to comics, I love hearing about what you're doing in film and TV. So that's great. Yeah. And so Erratic, everybody, AWA. It came out. First issue came out this week. 5 issues in the first story arc, but really fun, and I absolutely recommend it. And as always, buddy, great to talk to you. So
great catching up.
Thanks for hanging out tonight.
All right, man. Have a great weekend.
You too, buddy. Kaare Andrws, everybody. Thank you very much for watching Word Balloon Live. It's going to be a big week next week. We got a lot of fun stuff going on. I hope you'll join me. But thank you. Have a great weekend. Thanks for all the great birthday wishes. You saw the commercial for Bat Black Friday. If you're interested in buying some of those prints, in fact, I'll even show the commercial as we go out. But that sale ends tonight at midnight, and we've got great art that we're selling at mainframecomiccon.com based on the event that we did last Friday, Bat Black Friday. The panels are there as well, and certainly here on the Word Balloon YouTube channel. So if you haven't had a chance to check them out, please do so. Thanks a lot for watching. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.